Hey y'all, I'm Kim, host of Book Marketing Mania, and I'm so thrilled you're tuning in today as my guest is LeeAnn Fox, founder of Kingdom Bloggers and host of the Kingdom Influencer podcast. As you are writing blogs and recording podcasts to build your author platform, you might be scratching your head about how to reach even more readers than you are today. You know there are readers out there asking questions that your content answers. So let's talk about how search engine optimization, SEO, plays an important part in attracting your readers to your blog and podcast. LeeAnn is a genius at this, and I couldn't wait to talk to her about what blogging is and isn't, and why a blog is so important for authors, how SEO works on your blog, and how it helps you reach a wider audience you wouldn't be able to otherwise, and the role SEO plays in building your author platform if you're pitching a book proposal to a traditional publisher. And if you're listening to this live in January, be sure to check out LeeAnn's upcoming SEO for Christian Authors Bootcamp. You can use the code PODCAST and get 25% off. I'll put a link in the show notes. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to LeeAnn to show our gratitude for her past service to our country. I am so thankful. Needless to say, you are in for a treat today with LeeAnn, so let's get to it. Hey, LeeAnn, welcome to Book Marketing Mania. I'm so thrilled you're here today to serve my listeners.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Well, there's so many things I could ask LeeAnn about. She has been in the online space for years and years and years and just knows a ton about helping all of us that are, trying to write and speak and podcast and blog and do all the things to, grow a ministry and really get out there and share the message that God has given us. And so I just really wanted to get LeeAnn on here to talk about blogging and SEO at the really basic level, because it just makes my head spin. And I think I know quite a few things about a lot of that, but I don't, So LeeAnn, let's just jump right into it. And let's just start off with whether somebody is just starting to write and have an online presence, or maybe they have been at it for a while and been writing on, blogging for a while. I know lots of things have changed over the years, but let's just go back to the very basics and talk about what is a blog exactly?
Yeah, so this is actually one of the questions I get a lot. And I think the definition of a blog is so misunderstood. We think of blog in terms of like famous people where they just talk about whatever, like, this is what I did, this is what I like, and here's my problems. And that is kind of the old school blog. For us, in what we do as content creators, a blog is simply a content driven website where you literally write content to answer the questions people are asking of Google. What they go to that Google box or Yahoo, Bing, whatever. Your job is to provide content to answer that. That is a blog. So you can't write about what you did last summer, what you think about the weather. It's literally to answer questions, queries. And that query could be how to make enchiladas, but it's still, something we go to Google for, and we are seeking an answer to that.
That's so good. And in that, like you say, it's changed over the years, because as you were talking about like the more that personal diary kind of blog, which I know is still out there like on video land, but I feel like, that's what we see on social. Like we're not trying to Google, right, how you feel about the weather today, right? We're going to weather.com to find that out, what our weather forecast is. But I know back when I first started, that was what blogging was. I mean, it was just, and like you say, it was kind of like more of a celebrity thing. Like this person has a blog, and so you go read it and subscribe to it, back in the day that was totally different than what we do today. So I love that you're kind of talking through, especially for our audience, just there's a different purpose for it. So, be thinking about that as you listen to this episode, is that this isn't just like, throw up some words on a blog, and call it a blog, and be happy with it. Cause there's maybe not as many people are going to read that, right? Because we really do want to get into the problem that our readers are facing and how we have a solution for it, especially for our audience that's writing books. Yes. That's what everybody wants to buy a book to solve some kind of problem they have. So let's talk about our audience, LeeAnn, as far as, writers and authors that are trying to write books to solve problems. Why do you think a blog is so important for them to have?
Yeah, so this is actually kind of my new endeavor in the coming year is really targeting writers and authors. I
Hmm.
have two in my group that have been kind of doing the process, and they're like, "Why did nobody tell us this as
Hmm.
authors?" And so the problem is most author writers have a blog in the way of what we were just talking about, where they're just kind of random. And so understanding the transition from print writing to digital writing is what we like to term it. You have to figure out like who is your audience? Who are you trying to reach? And the reason you would want a blog is it's going to drive more traffic, which in turn could drive more sales, a bigger audience for your book platform. Like if you're writing content that answers the queries people are searching for that in some way relate to what your books are about, people are going to find you naturally, organically. You're not going to have to spend a ton of money on advertising.
Hmm.
And I know I learned this. I guess you have like a one sheet, things you have to put forth to publishers to
Hmm.
justify, hey, I can actually sell this
Yes.
book.
Yeah.
It requires numbers,
Hmm.
traffic, followers, and all of that can be gained. I say free. I mean, you have to pay for
Uh-huh.
the website itself, but free in the terms of marketing funds. You
Hmm.
can do all of that for free if you set up your blog in the right way. So it is definitely a resource that writers and authors need, especially in the financial times that we're in now. We don't really have a lot of extra funds to put towards things, and we want to put them towards things that'll be very fruitful. And
Hmm.
so I would love for more writers and authors to learn the proper way to do a blog so that they can start seeing more fruit from the work that they're doing.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's so good. Yeah, because we spend so much time and money and energy on things that don't always, work out best for us. And that's what I love about, just really learning about the new changes in this online space and how we can be more strategic about it. And I know there's a lot of things that you're going to talk about. Just, we can do some things once and then we just maximize, it like crazy
Mm.
through the search engine optimization, which that's what I want to ask LeeAnn for sure to dive into because that too is so confusing. And so I think about like, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day and she was like, I've got to get this blog post written about, whatever topic. And I was thinking, that topic applies to whatever, her future book and her business and stuff. But I just kept thinking, well, you're putting all your time and energy in this. Like, is anybody reading that blog today? Like not, it's a simple question, but that's a difficult one sometimes to talk about. But I think we just don't think about it because it's so foreign to us. Like to think, oh yeah, well, I want people to read it, but how are they going to read it? Like I could try to share it on social, but that's not always working these days. So how am I going to
Yeah.
reach those people that are looking for this information? And I know there's a lot that goes into that. So let's just dive into SEO, LeeAnn. And first, will you just describe what that is in the very beginning? Let's just go back to the basics again. What is SEO that we keep hearing
Yeah.
about?
So I think for most people, myself included, when I first got started, SEO is such a scary word. It's
It
so
is.
technical, right? And if you weren't formally trained in like geeks speak, is what we
Yeah.
call it, like it's very intimidating, but it's not. Search engine optimizations is simply a fancy way of saying writing something in a way that people can find it online.
Hmm.
That's all it means. And so there's certain formatting, of course, which is a lot less than what you think it is,
Hmm.
but it comes down to the keyword, and people misunderstand what a keyword is. It's not a single word. It's basically the query, the literal thing somebody is typing in that Google search box, and then writing a piece of content that answers what they might have questions about, like kind of exemplifies the entire topic itself.
Hmm.
Also, remembering people don't go to the internet to read novels. They
Hmm.
go for quick, actionable steps. And so, putting it's like if somebody just asked you in passing, "Hey, could you tell me about this real quick?" and giving them the like Cliff's Notes, if you will, like the
Yeah.
elevator speech for that topic. That's ultimately what SEO is. And all of that, and then putting it into a format that Google understands. And the
Uh-huh.
formatting is important. It's simple, but it's important because, just like when, let's take it to church on Sunday, that you have our grown up church, you have Wednesday night students, so high school and middle school.
Mhm.
And then on Sunday down the hall, you have the little kids that like Sunday school. You could be teaching the same exact message, but it has to be put in different formats in order for that audience to understand it, in order for it to be translated.
Mhm.
Well, we are in a digital environment now. And so it's simply translating it into a way that the digital format understands, like the crawlers that we can't see. It sounds kind of
Uh-huh.
creepy, but
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
it's literally just translating it. And I have a lot of people tell me like, well, I don't write for Google, I write for
Uh-huh.
God.
Yeah.
But God expects you to learn the rules of the road in whatever you're doing. The reason, let's say, certain older pastors, we don't put an older pastor in charge of youth ministry. We
Mm-hmm.
put a younger person, right? And so they can speak the language. And so it's just learning to speak the language. That's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And I have heard that so much lately, like, don't write for Google. But I think we have to remember, like, yeah, that's not our end goal, right? We're trying to serve a real person on the other
Mhm.
end. But like what you're talking about, LeeAnn, we have to really think about what is that person on the other end looking for, though, So
Mhm.
like they're looking for something specific. And if we've been called to answer and provide a solution for that specific problem, then we have to figure out how are they searching for it. And then, like you said, deliver it to them in the way that's going to make sense for them. And, it's a specific age or gender or whoever we're trying to serve. We have to think about how they are going to, take that information on the internet. And that just made me spin off on so many different things when you were talking about, writing for Google. I did want to ask you, so in that lane, like, you know, we want to find that answer quickly. We want to get like those what are the steps to, help me with this problem I'm having. I do want to say LeeAnn has a ton of resources that we'll share at the end where you can go and learn all about SEO and blogging. But I am going to dive into a couple of things that I know will definitely interest the listeners. And so I want to make sure I ask LeeAnn just about, formatting a blog post or, writing a blog post, because I keep hearing you have to write these big, long blog posts to make Google happy. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so blog post length is subjective to the query you're answering. And so it's a big misunderstanding that you have to have at least, I don't know, 1,500 words
Yes,
or
that's what I always hear.
2,000 words.
Yeah.
The truth is, and I mean, I will discredit anybody who it's just not that way. It's every query requires a certain amount of content to number one, be competitive against what's already ranking.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, to satisfy the query being asked. Right. And so, as an example, I have content that's 3,000 words. I have content that's 1,100 words.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, anything under 1,000, maybe 1,200 isn't going to be competitive simply because that's just not enough content to tell Google that your piece is better than what's already ranking.
Uh-huh.
And so the best way, there's some tools that you can figure out a target word count for the specific post you're writing. But I guess the workaround is like go Google that query, look at the top 10 results, copy the text from them into a Google document and see what the average is of word count. Like literally, that's how I used to do it before I found all these tools.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it does need to be enough. It can't be like 300 words. It can't be 500 words. But
Uh-huh.
whether it needs to be 1,200 or 2,400, it all comes down to like, as an example, characteristics of a godly marriage. And
Mm-hmm.
let's say my post was 16 characteristics. Well, that's obviously going to be a longer post than if I was just providing a list of printable Bible study resources that I find on the
Uh-huh.
internet. That one would be maybe 1,200 words.
Uh-huh.
So it just varies, but it does need to be significant enough to answer and provide and also be competitive with because to compete for page one, you got to be better than what's there. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if you lowball it, too low, then you just don't have enough content to compete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to reiterate again, like what we're talking about here is, if you want your target reader that when they go online and search out, like you were talking about, biblical principles for marriage or however they would word that, um, that we're trying to capture those readers' attention and get them to read our post, and we have to do that. We have to be competitive in Google land to do that. Now, if you have like if you're writing shorter posts and you're leading people over there to read from your podcast or from social or something like that, you may have a shorter post, right? But what we're talking about here is just you may do that, but then you're like, oh, this is really great. Everybody's responding to it. How can I get it out to more people that I don't know that aren't following me on social or listening to my podcast? And this is the way to do it that LeeAnn's talking about. So I love this so much. So LeeAnn, when writers and authors are pitching a book proposal to publishers, traditional publishers, they do get into our numbers, and we hate that. I know we all hate talking about our numbers, but it is reality. I mean, publishers are trying to sell books, right, and make money from that and have businesses to run. And so they do want to see that you have an audience to sell a book to. And so will you just talk into that, LeeAnn, just how SEO, really focusing on this aspect of blogging can really help with that in the long run?
Yeah, actually, this is one of my favorite parts to talk about because on one end, it provides a huge relief and less overwhelm when you understand this principle.
Mm-hmm.
Your SEO, the content, the SEO and the content is the foundation for all the fruit that you want to see grow. That fruit is subscribers, product sales. If you have your own products that you're selling, in this case, the books that you're writing, or even other types of sales through affiliate marketing and other things, it all comes down to that content. If you have that foundation, it basically goes on autopilot. You don't have to continually share it on social media. I mean, you can do all that, but that's like whipped cream and cherries. That's just like extra. And
Yeah.
whether you do that or not, with the foundation of SEO traffic, it will just you can go on vacation, come back and be like, oh my gosh, I got more people. And so for the numbers that you need, having content on your site, let's just have an example of someone's looking for Bible study resources. I always use this one because it's easy.
Yeah.
And they're searching for maybe some Bible study resources about women in the Bible or just anything. And you have an opt-in. So that content's being Googled, searched. Yours comes up on page one. They click on yours, land on your site, read your post, and you have an opt-in for, say, 12 monthly Bible reading plans. They get on your email list. Now they're on your email list. And I'm telling you, just because I know from experience, I have 5 ladies that build humongous lists from a Bible reading plan opt-in. Then in that, you mentioned, so you're building this warm audience. So when you do launch a new book, you have all these people, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of subscribers that you just basically wrote one post possibly. And because that opt-in related to what the post was about, what they were looking for. Now, all this given that your book has maybe something to do with Bible study. If not, you would kind of tailor it to that. But even in that, separate from your book, that email list is also how you get them to join you on social media. So your email list can then help you build the social following, saying, hey, be sure to follow us here because this is what we do on Instagram if you want to hear from us live. And so you simultaneously are building those numbers almost on autopilot because all of that's automated through your email funnel.
Yeah.
So it just takes a lot of stress and a lot of the overwhelm of having to always do, be. And you're just like, just kind of set it and forget it, if you will.
Yeah.
And I would just put, so I'm not an author, but just to put it in perspective, I have 3 websites. I have a teaching platform. Now I have a podcast and a YouTube channel. If it wasn't for the automation that stemmed from my organic traffic, I would not be able to do all of this and still not be completely gray in the head.
Yeah.
Like I have so much time to go do other things because that organic foundation is doing the work for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. One, I'm so glad you brought that up because I wanted to ask you about that because I've definitely noticed LeeAnn has been just killing it on YouTube with her videos to teach us about these things we're talking about on the podcast. And she just started a podcast. And of course, she has been blogging forever. So you know about the 3 different mediums, LeeAnn, blogging if we want to read something, audio, if we want to listen on a podcast, or if we want to watch something be taught to us on YouTube. So I know one of the questions I get a lot about, because I'm a huge proponent of podcasting. And if you want to do video, you do it that way too. But I mean, I'm just a huge proponent of the audio podcast because I listen to a ton of them and I learn all different things, like not just one genre, but just, all different things in my life. I usually go to see if there's a podcast on it. But I know like for people that have been blogging, or maybe they were thinking about starting a blog, but they're also thinking about a podcast. And I think they start thinking it's kind of an either or, how am I going to write for my blog each week? And then I'm going to have to write for my podcast each week, and then gosh, if I add video into it, it's just one more thing on the list to do. And all these things take away from writing books. So I want you to speak into that because I know you have some really good information to share on how to maybe change our mindsets on thinking it's all these different things that we have to do for, to build our ministry and our business.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is to understand, okay, so there are 3 different methods to go about it, 3 different places. But to be effective, you have to build one first, right? You want to build one foundation first. Now, I'm a big gifts and talents person, right? I love figuring out what people's true gifts and talents are. And so blogging, video, talking, which I mean, video is talking too, but
Yeah.
where do you feel you are the best at that you can just get that and focus on that one first? Because well, video and blog are both organic. Podcast
Mhm.
isn't so much organic. You have to be a podcast person and then go into your
Right.
podcast library and look. So if you're trying to build that organic foundation, I would say either YouTube or blogging first.
Uh-huh.
Create an entire content library, if you will, like get a lot of stuff there. Then once that organic traffic starts on that platform, then you go back to the top performers and create the other. So if you started with a blog, get all the blog stuff done for like a year. And then in year 2, go back and make videos for your top performing posts and build your YouTube channel from content that's already doing well on your blog. The podcast can come third
Mhm.
because a lot of those videos that you recorded, like I record everything using Zoom and
Mhm.
it creates an audio file that's super easy to go in and edit and cut and do whatever. And so now you have all this podcast material and you're not having to do double the work. Now, later you may start doing, of course, interviews and things like
Uh-huh.
that. But just to get it started, you've already done the work. Now just repurpose it. And so again, you need a plan, but you need to figure out where your talent lies best, where you can be the most effective and efficient. And then start there before, don't like, okay, write the post, do the video,
Uh-huh.
don't do that. You'll drive yourself crazy. Do one
Yeah.
at a time and then figure out of that what you can repurpose.
Yeah, that's so good. And I mean, we talk a lot about podcasting here. LeeAnn, and I know you just started your Kingdom Influencer podcast recently, which is so good. So, talk to me because, of course, I'm like a proponent of because I'm not much of a writer, so I'd much rather do my podcast and then take that to put that on the blog post. And I think a lot of people are going to be like, "Whoa, wait, I have to blog for a while and then podcast." But I'm going to just say, like, this is just my personal opinion, LeeAnn. Like, I'm thinking unless you're going to do it the right way, and I say the right way, really put forth the effort into the SEO, then I would not spend all this time writing a bunch of blog posts. Like I would say, if speaking is your thing, let's get you on a podcast. But how could we, if we say, okay, I do want to start podcasting, I'm not going to write blogs or I don't know about the SEO just yet, but I want to start podcasting and really hone my voice and start serving my target readers and listeners. But then I don't want to miss out on that blog and SEO piece. So how would you recommend somebody go about that?
So if that's the speaking, right? Like I don't want to be on video. I get that one a lot. Like I just don't want to
Yeah.
be on video and I don't want to write. So launch the podcast, right? Get out there, be guests on other podcasts because that's going to get you more exposure.
Hmm.
I would recommend that you at least have a website to direct people to, and on that have resources, whether they're SEO'd or not, but resources that are tailored to your reader. The biggest problem that I see as a consumer in authors
Hmm.
specifically is it's all about trying to get you back to my site so you'll buy my book.
Hmm.
And the foundation of my ministry is built on serve, not sell.
Yes,
When
me
you try to
too.
when you serve them because of what they're needing, you don't have to sell the book. They'll
Hmm.
already want it. Right. And so if we get out of the mindset of my blog is so I can sell books, because that's what I get a lot of writers tell me. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
you're really going about it the wrong way. Get back to the biblical principle of serving your audience, offer them free resources, things like that. Then they'll go tell their friends and
Uh-huh.
now you
Yeah.
get more of that. And like you mentioned, I'm new in the podcasting side of things. So I don't know quite like building the financial blessings from podcasting, monetizing and things like that. But if you do really well and you get those sponsorships and things, then after a bit of time, maybe you could pay someone to write content for the website. That's actually how I've been able to build mine. I
Uh-huh.
started with guest posters. I gave them training on how to write. And I built from that up to actually being able to pay for writers, other Christian writers to, in the process, learn SEO while they're writing for my site. And so
Yeah.
there is a few ways to go about it. But I totally get that some people are just like, I just want to talk. And there is a market. Obviously, podcasting is huge. But I think it really comes down to making sure that you're proactive in getting out there in podcasting land to be guests and get guests on your show and
Uh-huh.
expand your audience through that. But at some point, you do want to come back. Again, this is big picture. Like
Yeah.
some people are
Yeah.
like, well, I just don't want to do it. And it's like, well, that's okay. But big
Yeah.
picture, if you're really trying to achieve all that you're able to achieve, having all three of them at some point, not now, but at some point
Uh-huh.
is very important. And you just have to strategize how you will accomplish that. And that's why you find the writers and things like that that can help you do it. So, side note here, kind of related, but not. So, Kingdom Blogger started in 2018. I am not a creative writer. I'm going to tell you
Uh-huh.
how to do stuff. Like coming from the military, I'm like, I can tell you what to do all day and how to do it, but I'm not a creative writer.
Uh-huh.
That is how our ministry started. I found some Christian women. I was like, hey, I will teach you this stuff if you'll write for my site. 12 months later, we were seeing 25,000 people come to the site every month. So,
Yeah.
utilizing the resources that you have around you and not trying to accomplish it all yourself is very,
Mm-hmm.
very important. Collaborate with other people
Yes.
and collaborate with their gifts.
Yeah, I think that's, so important. I mean, I love collaborations. And then especially, like you knowing what your gift is and what it wasn't. And it wasn't like, okay, well, I can't do that because it's not my gift. I can. I'm just going to bring people in to help me and you're helping them at the same time. So I'm thinking probably, LeeAnn, then for you that has been blogging for so long, or you have blog content, either you wrote it or somebody else writes it. Is that what you're taking to your podcast now? Like, is that content you're reusing on either your podcast or your YouTube channel?
Yeah. So whatever. So my content. So my site is mostly faith content, but I do have the how to do the
Uh-huh.
blogging as well. And so I went just through all the content I had already created. I looked at what most people like, which one's got the most engagement, like
Uh-huh.
most traffic, most shared on Pinterest, things like that, and the questions people were asking. And I always wanted to make sure I had a written version for people who just prefer to read it. And then from there, I started creating the videos for every single tutorial that I already wrote. And then from that, I repurposed those, like I said, the Zoom files,
Uh-huh.
the audio for them into the podcast. So it was all started from the blog content.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. That's what I envision. Yeah, and when I see it, that's what I think. It's probably that way, but I don't always think of it right away because I'm just like, I just know I'm consuming really great content wherever I
Well,
happen to
thank
be. So
you.
I see you in all the different places. Yeah, you're doing an amazing job of it.
Thank
And
you.
I think like so you started YouTube first. So I'm thinking like your blog post that you took to YouTube, then are you going back and embedding the YouTube video into that blog post? So
Yes.
so I think that's really important to know. Like, even though you created a video, it was content you already had. Now you just created it, repurposed it in a video, the video platform, YouTube, and then you took that and put that back on your blog post. So again, with all this amazing SEO that LeeAnn's talking about, she can answer the problems that her readers are solving and they arrive on her blog. Well, they could read a blog post or they're going to see your video right away, right? And be able to push play on it. Are you doing something similar with your podcast too? Are you embedding some of those episodes into your content?
Not yet, but in the podcast episodes, there's a section that you can auto put at the bottom of the show notes that leads back to those resources.
Mm-hmm.
So at some level, everything is interconnected. The video is embedded in the respective blog post. That blog post, obviously, or I'm sorry, the video itself, the notes of that video, the description has links back to the blog post. So those two are sending traffic. And then now with the podcast, links to both places are in the show notes. And the thing is, like, everybody has their preference.
Uh-huh.
Some people, like you said, you love to just listen. Some of us want to, we drive to work and we have a 30, 45-minute drive. You listen to a
Uh-huh.
podcast. Others prefer watching the video.
Yeah.
Some are old
Yeah.
school and they're like, I just want to read it. And so at the end of the day, you're providing the same content, but in three different forms to maximize your audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. I know, like I listen to all kinds of, faith podcasts, but I'm like right now, I'm really into like home decoration ideas, and so I have I love to watch that, of course, on YouTube, but I also I've found some that talk about it on a podcast, and it's not like they're not talking about something I have to see,
Mhm.
they're kind of talking about maybe just your thought process of how you feel about designing your home or something. But then there's some things that I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll just push pause and I'm like, I just need to go read this. I mean, it's so funny how I've really tried to pay attention to what my behavior is nowadays. And I'm like, oh, wow, there is times that I just pause on it all. And I'm like, let me just have the blog post. Like, I need to read this. Like, I need to, have it that visual. So, yeah, I just
And
love that.
that's important that you mentioned that
Yeah.
because as creators, we get into the mindset of the creator and we
Mhm.
often forget what it's like on the other side of the screen, if you will, or
Yeah.
and when we go about our daily things, taking note of how do I like it? Are there certain things in this blog post that a video might be appropriate? And so link to that video, even if it's not the video for what the post is about, but it's a good, hey, here's some more information in the podcast. And so always thinking about that. But I know from personal experience, it took me a while to get to that point because I was my mindset is, okay, I got to create, but I would lose focus on the process that the user goes through, that the customer goes through.
Yeah.
And you really have, and especially if you listen to podcasts, like write down what did you not like about it? What did you wish they had done? And then come back to your own and make sure that you're doing those things.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, LeeAnn, this is so good. And I know this is just like the tip of the iceberg. And I want you to be able to share where people can connect with you and how they can find your resources.
So I guess the first place, obviously my website, just Google Kingdom Bloggers. Everything on the front page is from my site. And again, my site is twofold. The majority of the content there is Bible study resources, but there is a very small section where my written tutorials are. If video is your thing, my YouTube channel. And then my podcast is called the Kingdom Influencers Podcast. And then I have a Facebook group. It's a private group where you can come and ask questions, get tech support, and things like that.
Yeah, because that's actually how LeeAnn and I connected is I knew I was a member of it and I had an SEO question and I was like, I've just got to go to that group and ask. And it was actually LeeAnn that responded so sweetly, so fast, and has helped me so much. So I definitely highly recommend her community. Well, this has been so good today, LeeAnn. I can't thank you enough for your time.
No, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to get out. I want to be more intentional with in the coming year is getting outside of my reach and sharing this information. It's not about numbers in a selfish way, but it is about numbers because the more people that are empowered with this information, the more people can do God's work in the digital space. And that's really what it's all about.
Amen to that. Yeah. Oh gosh. Thank you so much, LeeAnn. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much.
Woo-wee, y'all. I'm sure your head is spinning with ideas, and I'm so thankful for LeeAnn taking the time to help us make sense out of blogging and SEO. And remember, if you're listening to this live in January, be sure to check out LeeAnn's upcoming SEO for Christian Authors Bootcamp, and you can use the code PODCAST and get 25% off. I'll be sure to put the link in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, I'll be there for you to help you build your audience and market your book one podcast at a time. See you then.